Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. Happy Monday, all you minties. Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at the Spider-Man Ben Reilly Omnibus Volume 2 from Marvel Comics. We're looking at the latest printing, so join me. Now, before going any further, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on February 6th or 7th, depending on where you get your books. And speaking of direct market, book market, what we're looking at here is the direct market cover by John Romita Jr. And on the left-hand side is the original printing of the Spider-Man Ben Reilly Omnibus Volume 2. And this cover is also supplied by John Romita Jr. This is the one that they're using again for the standard edition. But let's take a look at the spines here. This one looking a little bit yellow, and then this one red. Which is really interesting because Volume 1 had a red spine. Which, of course, Volume 1 had this color on it. So maybe it's because it's a wraparound cover. This is the first time that we've had a direct market cover, by the way, on this particular printing. And how do I know? Because I was there at the beginning when all of it was decided. No, it's funny because I remember when David was like, oh, we got to put this in the schedule. We keep pushing it back. But here we are with a new printing. Just shows how long I've been doing this type of video. On the back here is the shocking conclusion to the Clone Saga. You have the covers. Over here, why you have just a picture of the Green Goblin. Well, that's because the dust jacket image showcases this piece right here from Spider-Man 75. Even though you have this overlay of color on top of the picture, you can still see the picture underneath the font and the color here. Bring it back to this. Let's look underneath the dust jacket because I know for a fact I was going to say that they used the image to issue 75 for the art on board, but this time around we have this design right here. And then the spine, Marvel Omnibus, Spider-Man Ben Reilly Volume 2, and then the back of the book. I think that's a piece by Luke Ross right there. I'm not sure if you can tell with the lighting and everything, but we do have like the DNA helix as a pattern all around the book here. Okay, we are going to open this up, talk about the stories found in here, show off the artwork. It's really difficult to talk about the story because we are talking about the ending of the Clone Saga. Oh, one more thing I needed to do, I'm sorry. Show the flaps now. I tell to Spider-Man and then the creators, the bio and the creators. But it's difficult because we're talking about the ending of this era, and even flipping through these pages, you might get something spoiled for you. And I don't want to go into the hows and the whys, but there might be things that you'll see through here that I may mention. So if you want to go into this completely blind, you don't want to know how it wrapped up, you want to read it and experience it for yourself, I respect that. Skip to the comparison and the build of this book. I'll put the timestamps in the description of the video. Okay, everybody else, let's go ahead and crack it open. Okay, let's crack this open. And I just realized when I was holding the other book, I was thinking, I did an overview of this. Yeah, it's gotten to be that point in my life as a YouTuber that I'm going to be doing overviews of new printings of books I've already talked about in the past. But since I don't go back and watch my videos, this could all be a repeat. All right, title page. DNA Helix in the back again. It's that pattern. Ben Reilly, Dan Jurgens, Tom DeFalco, Howard Mackie. I said Ben Reilly like he's one of the writers. These are your main writers. Dan Jurgens, Tom DeFalco, Howard Mackie, Todd DeZago. James DeBattea coming in for some stories in here too. The pencilers, Dan Jurgens, Mark Bagley, John Romita Jr., Sal Buscema are the main pencilers through here. Luke Ross, an early Luke Ross in here too. And then your inkers like Klaus Janson and Larry Malstead and Al Milgram, Al Williamson. The colorist, Gregory Wright, Bob Sharon, Kevin Timsley, just to name a few. The letters, Ken Lopez, Jim Novak, Jack Morelli, and so many more. And kicking off this omnibus with Sensational Spider-Man, not Spectacular Spider-Man. Sensational Spider-Man issue number 4, Blood Brothers, part 1 of 6. So what is collected throughout this book? Well, we know we have Sensational Spider-Man, but it goes from Sensational Spider-Man 4 through 11, Amazing Spider-Man 411 and 418, Adjectiveless Spider-Man 68 to 75, Spectacular Spider-Man issues 234 to 241, Spider-Man Unlimited issues 12 through 14, Spider-Man Redemption, the 4-issue miniseries, Daredevil 354, Spider-Man Team Up 4 and 5, Spider-Man Revelations trade paperback, or material from that, really. And then Spider-Man the Osborn Journal, Spider-Man 101 Ways to End the Clone Saga, and Spider-Man Dead Man's Hand. The book has 1,304 pages, retailing for $150. That is something that I did. Dang it, I forgot to mention that. Sorry about that. I got caught up talking about the art and stuff. The original printing of the book retailed for $125. The new printing is $150. So that's something to keep in mind. Apologies for that. I always mention that, and I freaking forgot this time. I guess I just wanted to jump into this particular story. Okay, so what's happening through this particular era without going deep into spoilers? But just in case you haven't read the previous 3 volumes, yeah, I know, believe it, 3 freaking Omnis, and then this Omni to tell the whole saga of the clone, but it continues. Like, the story of the clone isn't over here if you've read things like Spider-Man Beyond. Okay, so during this time, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, the original Spider-Man, is believed to be the clone. He found out through some tests by a friend of Ben Reilly that he is in fact the clone, and Ben Reilly is the one and only original Peter Parker. So, not going into details, but he starts losing his powers. The original Peter Parker starts losing his powers, and Mary Jane is pregnant, and now he wants to just live a more quiet life and give up the superhero life. They move away from New York, and Ben Reilly is kind of knighted, if you will, arachnighted, if you will, the role of Spider-Man. Knowing that he's the original, he's not the clone, and he makes his own costume, makes his own life, because he's not going to take over Peter Parker's life. There's already a Peter Parker, and he's living happily with Mary Jane. We're introduced to a newer villain here named Gaunt, who will play a big, important part through these issues, but you don't see it at first. So what ends up happening now at the beginning of this is that Peter Parker, is talking to J. Jonah Jameson and Robbie about coming back and working for the Daily Bugle. And he's talking to Ben, because they really do feel like brothers now. And even though him and Mary Jane moved away, Ben is still here. He's still with Janine. And Ben's like, yeah, you guys should totally move back. And it's interesting to see that conversation take place, because even though, for years he thought he was the original Peter Parker, our Peter Parker still respects Ben Reilly enough to be like, is it okay if we come back to your turf? Interesting. And he like I said, he's lost his powers, or losing his powers. He's not as strong as he was. We see this young lady. This is Jessica, who is related to an older character. There seems to be a trend in this particular volume that we bring back older characters from Spider-Man's past through here in many different ways. And the other trend, because there's a lot of trends happening here, is that we bring back villains with cybernetic parts this time around. Gaunt does have a secret. He is somebody from Spider-Man's past. The Hobgoblin returns with like mechanized armor and arms and things like that. And you get the sense that maybe not everything is at seams through here. The Molten Man makes a return. And a lot of characters from Peter Parker's past make a return through here, meeting the new Spider-Man for the first time. Got some glorious artwork here by Mark Bagley, Tom DeFalco taking over the Amazing Spider-Man title. And one thing you probably notice is, where's Web of Spider-Man? Well, by now Web of Spider-Man was canceled, and we had another title, though. We had the ongoing Sensational Spider-Man by Dan Jurgens. So Jurgens came and took over the book. This is the fight with Scorpia and Jack-O-Lantern, Boomerang, Beetle, and Shocker. And there's this whole turf war going on, too, as to who the new kingpin of crime is going to be in New York. There always seems to be that era of Marvel Comics when villains are fighting who the next super bad is going to be. We get a little more revelation as to who could have been behind the Hobgoblin's mechanized look. And this leads into a mini-series called Redemption. And Redemption features the character of Kane. This is the return of J.M. DeMatteis, teaming up with Mike Zeck, Bob McLeod doing the inks pretty much, or finishes, and Jim Novak and Christy Shield. Christy Shield doing the coloring, Jim Novak doing the lettering. But this is the same team that brought us the Kraven's Last Hunt. And this is the story of Kane. And it's kind of, yes, it's exactly what it says. It's a redemption storyline. And it's more focused on the character of Janine and the character of Ben Reilly and their relationship. And I'm going to skip a little bit here because I don't want to go into spoilers or big spoilers. But what seems to be happening during this particular time is that Marvel's probably taking note of sales, right? It happens. This thing with the clone isn't working out, so let's go ahead and start wrapping up some of the storyline. Let's go ahead and start getting rid of some of the supporting cast that entered Ben's life in the previous volume. And some of it, seems like a natural flow for the story, and other parts, it's like, oh, is that it? Really? One particular character that they've been building up since Clone Saga Omnibus Volume 1, for example, and I'm not going to reveal who, it's just kind of thrown to the side in one issue going, yeah, they're not really that powerful. Let me tell you what's really going on. And it almost feels like you're like, did I miss something? Did I miss another story where this character that they've been hyping up this whole time is just some random person that doesn't really have powers? Yeah, it gets a little weird like that. This is the interesting crossover with Daredevil. And I say interesting because he had a previous crossover with Daredevil, but Daredevil had his black costume. And now he's back to the red. This is during the time of putting the character back in comics era of Marvel, where they were trying to go back to that classic era. This is the Tombstone, the whole crime lord, who will be the new crime lord of New York, the fight with Dragon Man here. And during this time, while Peter is losing his powers, he's also hurt, and he's put in the hospital. And it gets really hard, because Mary Jane is pregnant, and, her husband, Peter Parker, is in the hospital in a coma, and she doesn't know what to do, and, Ben is there. This is some early artwork by Luke Ross, whose art is a lot different nowadays, right? This is the same gentleman that went on to do things on the Captain America by Ed Brubaker run, so his art looks a little bit different during this time. Delilah making an entrance here for the first time. So we still have introduction to new villains, and this is what I mean. So eventually what happens is Peter Parker does end up waking up, and his powers are slowly coming back. And then Ben starts questioning his friend, like his friend that did the DNA test that proved that he is the one and true Spider-Man. This is the team up with Luke Cage, and then later on, of course, Iron Fist shows up. I think this is the Marvel team up with the Avengers, and you might be confused as to why there's a young Tony Stark, and that's why you must read The Crossing, because The Crossing will explain it all. Why there is a new Tony Stark. Mike Wieringo takes over the Sensational Spider-Man book on art, and Todd DeSago ends up writing it. We have the Onslaught tie-ins here, where the superheroes got swooshed away over to Image creators for a year, and Peter Parker and Ben Reilly are dealing with the ramifications of Onslaught Sentinels and cleaning up the city while all the superheroes are gone. So what exactly do they do? Yeah, it's really nice. This is a nice reminder that I forgot that Ringo had taken over the book. And this is the story with Swarm. Swarm makes a return back from his, was it the Champions? Defenders, I think. That's when he came back. He's a very creepy character, just made of like bees. And Ron Garney drawing this issue. This is, actually, I'm just going to skip that issue. And the less I say about it, the better, because I want people to genuinely be surprised. We do have the new Lizard confronting the original Lizard, Kurt Connors. And again, some early Luke Ross artwork here. I still love the way that John Romita Jr. draws big guys. Like, to me, I think he draws my favorite Kingpin. By the way, variant covers sometimes are on the opposite side of the standard edition cover, so they're not all in the back. Daredevil again coming in, helping Ben Reilly with the uh, Kingpin of Crime, or the new Crime Lord storyline. And then we get to Game's End storyline that kind of sets up the events of Revelation. And this is written by Glenn Hurling, Joe Bennett doing the artwork, and this is some old Joe Bennett art, long before he did anything on the Immortal Hulk series, guest starring Deathwatch. And this leads into, I think, no, it doesn't lead into, but they did collect the Spider-Man team up here, because this is, again, the Ben Reilly era. The first story is by Derek Robertson. The second story is what gets really interesting, because the second story is Steve Gerber writing a story, and it features Melf, the elf with the gun, if you remember that character from the Defenders era, with the whole mystery as to who he's supposed to be. Then we get to Revelations. Now, here is where pretty much the secrets come out as to who Gaunt was, who is really pulling the strings, who the real clone is. And damn it, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do, but there is a return of a character that you probably saw on the cover, or if you're reading comics now, you probably know that he's back. But this was a big deal back for us. So I guess big spoilers moving in, even though most of you know who I'm talking about. So just in case you don't want to know, skip to the extra. So the big spoiler, the big reveal. All right, who has been pulling the strings? What happens here? A lot of horrible things happen in Peter's life. So him and the clone are together. Mary Jane, who's pregnant, unfortunately loses the baby. And you find out that the guy that has been pulling the strings is none other than Norman Osborn. What? And I could tell, right? This is Steve Skroce, by the way, his first issue. Right here, I was like, oh my gosh, they brought back Norman Osborn. This is the guy, right, that died right after he killed Gwen Stacy. He came back, and he does talk a little bit in the journal, so the journal's also in here. And the big fight happens in issue 75. And at the end of issue 75, against the Green Goblin, it's when you find out who the real Spider-Man is. And you can find out for yourself. That's kind of a big spoiler. And what happens to the clone. But that was the big reveal. A lot of people, didn't see it coming. A lot of people were like, what? Upset that they brought him back. And rightly so. You do have an aftermath story, the Revelations aftermath, that kind of rebuilt the character of Spider-Man. You do have the Osborn Journal here. This tells exactly how he did it. How he was playing behind the scenes. And the Dead Man's Hand, this is the story with Carry On. And then the last thing that's collected in here is the 101 Ways. Yeah, this one here, artwork by Ben Herrera. 101 Ways to End the Clone Saga. Really, the only thing that I was hoping they would collect is the 6-issue miniseries, the story of the Clone Saga. It's how they would have actually, what the pitch was. And all this right here came from Marvel Vision, talking about the pitch and how it started. And Marvel Vision is what became, what Marvel Age became. And then your end sheets. All right, let's take a look at the binding. 1,304 pages, and that's the type of eye I like to see, baby. Big. Okay. Printed at the Mega Print. And I'm going to compare it to the original printing here in a minute. Very, very minimal bleed through. Honestly, not a lot. And the way spread pages look. So, very minimal cutter loss. Let's go ahead. A comparison to the original printing here. So, and sheets looking about the same. This looks a little bit darker in the new printing, the title page. And the same pattern is in the back. The original printing printed at the Donnelly printer, and the new printing printed at the Mega Print in Turkey. Alright, so yeah, I think, let me see here. Honestly, the paper stock seems about the same thickness. I don't see a difference in the paper stock, so let's look and see if there is. Actually, there's just a little bit more bleed through in the original printing than the new printing. Just based on what I can see here. And I mean very minimal. You gotta be really looking for it. But the main thing I wanted to compare, yeah, see, You can see just a little bit more of the things that are happening on the opposite page, but it's minimal to begin with. I wanted to see the way it laid over with spread pages, because there's a lot of spread pages through here. And just looking at both of these, the new printing lays over better than the original printing. And you can see more of the picture here than you can in the original printing. I mean, you can still hold it down. And it's minimal, and it's got good binding. It's just, I'm just being as thorough as I can be. And just one more, a little bit more towards the middle of the book. And the new printing seems to have just a little bit more art than the gutter loss that's happening in the original printing. But that's it. That's the Clone Saga, baby. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code Near Mint Condition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, the build, and of course comparison to the original printing. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking up this omnibus, which cover you're going to get, if you already have the original printing, and of course what you think about the Clone Saga. Was it worth it? Should it have been this long, or should it just have been 6 issues? If you have any questions, leave them down below, and my last question to you all is, what Spider-Man series or event or storyline needs to be collected in omnibus format? That's it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.